Hi, I am Michael Bean, and this is your free lesson for myfreeactingclass.com for Monday, October the 19th. Today we are doing our very first self-tape review. So if you have a self-tape that you would like me to look at, I will not reveal any identifying information that would get you in trouble. We're going to be looking at a commercial today from a regular myfreeactingclass.com attendee, and we're also going to be looking at a film and TV audition from another regular attendee. We're going to be going over both of them in detail and using them as examples to talk about camera technique. And the kind of things that go into self-tape auditions. Because, I mean, really, that's where most auditions are happening right now, and at least in Vancouver, but I would be very interested to know if this is happening in other markets, that most of the actors I know are auditioning right now as much as they were before, and some of them are auditioning quite a bit more than they were previously. Because the word that I've heard is that casting directors in Vancouver previously would see about 10 people in person, and then maybe a few of those people would get callbacks, and one of them would get cast. At this point, they're seeing 50 tapes, and so my guess is, based on what I know of casting directors, is they're not actually allocating any more time or money for that. And so this I would like you to see as one more piece of evidence that they really are only watching the first 20 seconds. Because if they used to see 10 and now they see 50 and they're not budgeting any more time or money, how are they making up that extra time? They're watching 20 seconds of them. And depending on who you talk to, some casting directors are like, well, no, we watch 30 seconds or we watch a minute. And I would say that probably the younger the actors are, the more likely casting is to watch more of the tape. I think that oh yeah, better highlight if my camera is higher. See, on camera day, I can't cheat either. Oh, so much better. Don't I look more alive now? So much more alive. Okay, let's talk about camera technique. I want to show you some slides so that you don't just get bored of me talking about the same stuff all the time. I've got to switch this into slideshow view and then movie over. So, share screen. Yeah, no, stop, arg. So what we've got here is eyeline, right? Too low angle, right, shooting up on you. Too high angle, shooting down on you, right? Here, if the camera is too low, we're typically, even the slenderest person like this gentleman here is going to look like he's got a double chin, right? And so if I do that here, very unflattering. Plus, you can see up my nose, which thankfully at this moment is clean. Don't recommend it for any of your self-tapes. Too high angle. I've already got a lot of forehead, but anytime we're shooting down on you, then we're going to see even more forehead. And the eye line too far off camera, and we're not going to see that at all in either of the self-tapes that were sent today, but you want to keep it. So shot, that's eye line, shot angle. The framing we've talked about lots of times. We want you in a medium close-up so we can see as much as possible. Right. We don't want the medium shot, which is down to your waist. Lighting can be really important partly because lighting conveys feeling. And so one of the reasons that I really loved this image in particular is that it's just a really easy indicator of how much emotional content is conveyed through lighting. And anybody who's done photography knows that. And actors, I think, know it, but it's important if people are making that assessment in the first 5 or 10 seconds of how technically competent you are, which I think they always did with auditions, but now they are also doing with looking at your self-tape, listening to your self-tape. If you end up being side lit or having harsh shadows, lighting from the bottom or lighting from the top, then that's going to, whether you want it to or not, convey emotional information to people about what's happening. And so it's just worth thinking about as you go into that. Camera backgrounds, obviously, et cetera, et cetera. Now, let's take a look at some self-tapes because that's what we came here for. We've got Melissa and then and Christian. So why don't we start with the commercial, and then because Christian's video is longer and it's going to take more time to go over it in detail. So here we go. This is from Melissa Miles. This is a commercial that she did, audition that she did back in, I think she said July. She said, I've spent a long time on it, but like, be ruthless, like go ahead and like really give me details. And I think that's because that's where she's at as an actor, not just because she's German.
Hey, remember Mom's apple pie? Remember when she used to put a big scoop of vanilla ice cream right on top? You can bring back those days and that wonderful taste with Borden's Golden Vanilla Ice Cream. Borden's borrowed a recipe from the past, where vanilla was made with extra eggs. This way, we get a richer flavor, a creamier texture, a deep golden color that lets you know that old-fashioned look and taste of homemade ice cream is back in style. Was it ever out of style? Borden's Ice Cream.
Okay, so technically, so much about this is really working for her, just in terms of the way she's set it up, right? It's very smiley for one. Commercials often have that, especially something like this, where she's selling. She's in the center of the shot. She's in a medium close-up. She's got a great eye light. She's got a neutral backdrop. You've got some, like sort of folds in it, but it sort of directs the eyes towards the middle, and it's not like we're spending much time looking at the wrinkles or folds. We're mostly looking at her. Her eyes are the brightest and shiniest thing. She got all the teeth. All of this is good. In terms of, and so really after that, it's all of my notes, are about the actual performance. I would say that she is probably a little bit too loud. That's flattening out her voice, and I think there's often a sense when people are looking at a screen, particularly, where it feels like it's far away. That's the way it feels to people, and so they're like, oh, it's far away, and I need to project even a little bit. And so just that reminder of the intimacy of film and TV. The intimacy that goes with on camera, because then we'll get more of the information. And then the next piece I would say is that this information is actually coming across. It's like it's happy, it's bouncy. The tone I think is right for commercial. But we're not really getting the information. Which is like fond memories. Nostalgia. Glee, family, happiness, warmth. That this is coming across right now as sort of technically right, and then everything that I would want to keep adding to it and keep playing with is about sort of filling it up from the inside more, if that makes sense. So Melissa, hopefully when you watch this tape, that's useful to you. I would also say that your accent is distracting, right? So unless they are looking specifically for an actor with an accent, and Melissa and I have already talked about this. She knows that like that's her like life project for the next, I can't remember, 6 months or something before she plans to relocate to Vancouver. Yeah, right? Remember the sign language applause? We just give Melissa applause. Yay! And so great that like she's being brave and letting us look at this in detail. If you remember, so it was a very long ago lesson where I talked about talent and the gaining of expertise. One of the things that from researcher Kay Anders Erickson, who talks in extreme detail, his work is very, very interesting, by the way. I'll put it in here so you don't have to, I think it's Kay Anders Eric, I don't remember entirely how to spell his last name. I might have spelled his last name wrong, but you put that into Google and it'll get you close enough. He wrote a book called The Peak, and he researches expertise and the gaining of expertise. And one of the things that in his model that is really significant or really important, and this is not just to toot my own horn, I promise, is getting feedback. Is that it's not enough to simply practice something for 10,000 hours. It's his research that this idea of 10,000 hours has come from. But one of the wonderful examples that I have used in class before and that I took from his work is that if just practicing was enough to result in expertise, then basically everybody would be an expert driver. right? Every adult would be an expert driver, but what actually happens is people get better and get better and get better, and then they plateau, and they kind of stay at that plateau for the rest of their lives. Because there is not a conscious effort to improve. Conscious effort to improve is generally going to be uncomfortable, going to require conscious practice, going to require feedback. You're going to have to take it apart and try and learn new parts of it again, and that is necessary. So this thing that Melissa is doing, not only is it super brave, but in my opinion, it's also really smart. That if you can get feedback, even if it's uncomfortable feedback, I think that's how we make the work better. And I'm just going to see if I can, I believe I even got that deliberate practice. There it is. Yeah. So let me share this with you. The 5 principles of deliberate practice. Push beyond one's comfort zone, work towards specific, well-defined specific goals, focus intently on practice activities, receive and respond to high-quality feedback, and develop a mental model of expertise. So if you wanted more details, you could go look at Anders Ericsson's work. Highly recommended. Now let's look at Christian's tape, because time goes so fast. I always feel like, oh man, half an hour, and then really I have time to do 2 things, and that's it. So let's take a look at Christian's tape. So this is for a horror movie, which you will see clearly right from frame 1. Talk about like clearly communicating with that opening visual. What you want the audience to see in terms of tone. You'll see that immediately in Christian's tape. Maybe we'll talk about the scenes one at a time. He did 2 takes, or the tape includes 2 takes of each scene, but we're only going to watch one, in today's class. So.
Elliot, sweetheart, you have to understand. I'm not Elliot! Get your back in mine! Stop it! You're not Nathan! Don't you get that, you stupid little brat? I am! Nathan is dead. Do you hear me? Dead! It's not true! You're lying! Oh, sweetie, I'm sorry.
Okay, so if we just talk about this this first one, again, what we've got is medium close-up. We got a little bit of shadow on the back, but for me, that's not a big issue. Let's see if we get a better eye light. There we go. So once he tips his head up, we're getting a good eye light. So neutral background, medium close-up. There's technically, exactly the things that we're talking about. His eye line, right, the line between his eyes and where he's looking, is very close to camera. All of this is excellent in terms of setup. It's like, great. This person who's doing this tape has been paying attention and knows what they're doing. And honestly, I think at this point that is a competitive advantage still. I will be interested in having casting directors in, particularly, once, like, I'm going to reach out to some folks once things slow down in December. And my hope, after they've watched like thousands of self-tapes, is that they'll be able to add to some of the information they gave us several months ago, and go like, well, here's what percentage of self-tapes, just we write off on technical reasons. We get a sense the character's supposed to be younger, and so the plain T-shirt is a really good choice. There's a technical thing that's happening here that's like very, very easy, which is that his hair is covering his eyes a little bit, and so that it's one of those things that like you want to look out for, regardless of your gender. You just want to make sure that your hair stays out of your eyes. And there are lots of creative ways to do that. You know hair better than I do, obviously, but it's a good idea, sort of in between takes, to make sure that that's clear, or just to like trim just enough off that we can, that it grazes the eyebrows, if that sort of look does it for you. In terms of Oh, there's one technical thing that I think would be a very strong improvement to this, which is that currently his mom is louder than he is. Very, very easy to do if you're taping with a phone, especially, because typically the reader is right beside the phone and then the actor is further away from it. Now, one of the things that I've invested in, because I was teaching a workshop recently, and also because I wanted to demo it to all of you, is this. And this is the most inexpensive USB lavalier microphone that I could find on Amazon. I won't say this is the best one. I will say, like, I bought the cheap one to see if it works, and it definitely works better than my regular computer audio. I also bought an equivalent lavalier for my phone for when I need to record things with my phone. It was like 20, 25 bucks. Plugs directly into the phone. And if in this setup they had something like that, they could have either pinned that directly, like clipped the lavalier mic to Christian, or they could have just clipped it to something near him. Now, barring that, if you don't have that microphone, the person who's reading needs to take their voice all the way down, little voice, because you're so much closer to the microphone, that the device is just going to pick you up better. Even if you're not shouting. I mean, he was shouting, you were speaking at a normal volume, Claudine, and your voice is still quite a bit louder than his, just because of the technology. As a comparison, I will unplug the USB microphone. There we go, set to, so this is the microphone on my laptop. And so I'm seeing some eyebrows from Candy, so I assume that you can actually tell the difference. I don't know what I sound like, but I'm assuming that you can tell. Just gonna switch it back. There we go. To the lavalier mic. And the lavalier mic travels with me way better. I'm in the studio today. So it also makes my life a little bit easier. And so that's the technical piece of it. And then if we go back to the tape, I think the performance piece of this first scene, the advice that I would give as an acting coach is that the reader needs to be, jump on her cues. Is that Christian's like, he's doing all of this emotional work, and then there's this lag, this sort of lull, while before the reader says her next line. And especially with a scene like this, we also get this in comedy. It's really important to have that like tennis match back and forth, da 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 da. And with something like this, that's a fight. I think that Claudine and Christian did something really wise here, which was like having the rope. What would have been great would have been to like lock off the phone and like wrestle with the rope more. And then if I was taping Christian, I would say make noise, right? Basically do something to fill up the spots while your mom is talking, right? While the other person is talking. So there's like my line, my line, so that there's like a continued momentum in the scene. Now the other issue here, and I don't know if this would work, but right now it's all at this sort of like right at 100. And it might be interesting to play with arc in a scene like this as well, to go like, what does it work better if it like gets to 60 and it ramps up to no? Does it work better if, honestly, I think starting right at 100 can be really jarring, for an audience. And so, personally, I would say, like my impulse would be to start with like, start quite escalated, start at 60, and then ramp up, and because then maybe you earn the fall apart. Also, the like zoom all the way in on his eye at the end, don't ever do that in a self-tape, unless they've requested it specifically. And of course, maybe they requested it specifically in her tape, and they were like zoom all the way in on his eye. But otherwise, like let them imagine that in their cinematographer's brains. Otherwise, like for me watching the tape, I'm like, what is she doing? Like, why would she do that?
I went in to cuddle him because I had to cuddle him. So instead of cuddling him, I went in to cuddle him.
Don't ever.
No.
Yeah, no. Because then we end up thinking about what the person with the camera is doing instead of watching the kid. Like so that's one of those spots where I don't know if you remember in camera lessons, I would often talk about like, first thing is do exactly what it says in the script. Okay, you did that. Like here, you were like actually need to cuddle it. Didn't work. Next step is keep it all out of frame. Okay, you could have done that. Like maybe you could have like reached a hand in and like grabbed his lower arm, left the camera exactly where it is, but like given him some physical contact, and maybe that would have like helped him some. And then you could simply alter it to be something comforting. right? So it's, if the idea is that like he's comforted, or the character is comforted and feels better, he could wrap his arms around himself. You could hand him a teddy bear and he could squeeze the teddy bear, or he could just like relax against the wall, and like hold your hand and take a breath. Or if I'm taping something like this and I'm using somebody by Zoom, I'll even put a chair in front of me and I'll reach forward and I'll take the top of the chair like somebody's holding my hand, and just that action, tells the story. So you alter it to something, right? You keep the sense of the story, but you alter it to something that tells the story without sort of messing up the audition. And like, great experiment. Like, how do you know until you know? So again, this is the beautiful thing about like Claudine being willing to let us look at Christian's tape, is that anybody who is watching these lessons and going, yeah, I'm definitely going to remember that. You're not. Like there's 1,000 details and you're going to forget them. But guess what? Claudine's never going to do the zoomy in thing again because she did this, and she's like, oh, and she has the feels about it. And that's one of those ways to like land things in your body in a way that will help you retain them better, in my opinion. Okay, let's watch scene 2.
And I'm not an idiot. Sweetie, you sure you want to sleep here? Alright, but remember, you can come into our room anytime you want. Hey, what's this? That's Nathan's. Where'd you find it? Of course, I'm sure Nate wouldn't mind. He'd really love this. Take good care of it, will you? Alright. Kiss?
Now that, because the camera doesn't move and the actor steps forward, I think is a great way to do exactly what it says in the script and keep it out of the frame. So that kind of adjustment, I think, is really works for me technically.
Remember your brother and your prayers. Okay? Sweet dreams. Sleep tight.
Right, so again, all of the technical things that I talked about with scene 1 are still present, so I don't need to go over them again. Performance-wise, if I was taping this, I would recommend that he do it sitting in a chair, just because that usually will give more of a sense of like somebody who's sleeping, especially because he's close to the wall. I would say like slide your bum forward in the chair, like lean your head all the way on the back of the chair, or lean your head on the wall, so that you're actually like physically fully resting there. Because you're probably taping this at home, you could even take a blanket and tuck it up under his arms, right? Like you wouldn't want to tuck it up here or it ends up floating head, but you can tuck it up under there. And then if you really wanted to set the stage, I don't think that that's too much. Sometimes in self-tapes, or even in real auditions, I've done that with a jacket before. I'll go in with a jacket, or like let's say I had this sweater, I would take the sweater off, and just like fold over the sweatery recognizable parts, tuck it under my arms, and then on camera suddenly it looks like I'm wearing a blanket. Those kind of adjustments you can do even in real auditions, as long as you don't bring if you wouldn't want to bring a real duvet into an audition, but you could always bring your sweater or your coat and then like use it in a creative way. Especially if the producers were going to be watching the tape, and not in the room. So the main technical issue, of course, is that especially with this scene that's more intimate, now that he's dropped his volume, it's very apparent how much louder you are. It's hard to hear him. And so figuring out how to even just bring the phone way closer to him, and then you could stand further back from the phone, that would be another option, for your setup. But I love that you let us see for everybody, how he did the kiss on the cheek, because honestly, I get actors to do that in class, and it always feels horribly awkward. I always get actors going like, no, really? Oh God, lol. I can just, it feels so weird, but like it looks fine. As long as you know where your frame is, it looks fine. And so you can see that, because Christian just treated it like it was real, it worked for him. So the sign language applause for Christian. Applause! Yeah, Claudine, really nice work, and thank you for letting us take a look at that.
Okay.
In our first Monday self-tape review.
Thank you for your feedback.
Of course. Does anybody have a question for me about any of the notes or any of the things that they saw on the tape before we wrap up today? Okay. I will be back tomorrow. Maybe I will see some of you as well. Thanks for coming to Monday's lesson.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job.